Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I be like hallelujah, glory to you, Lord, yeah. Magnify the Prince of Peace, I lift my hands up, yeah. Yesterday, today, you never change, Holy, holy, holy Lord, you're worthy, send the praise up. Through the force, from the field, to the Lord, to his will. And like hell, getting still, foot the bill. Holy hill, love is real, come with me, you can still. None my joy, I've been filled, made me boy. Ducking and dodging the thoughts of the enemy. Prodigal son coming home to the family. Alpha and Omega, and woo. Tell a friend, woo. Rubber band man, bounce back again. Power in his hand, trusting in his plan. Call me Abraham, I'm in a new land. Promise greater than number of the stars, number of the sands. Got a master plan, move his master hand. Gotta give the man. SUB and my ancestor, yo, and he wants your submission. Break down, do his will, to the sound and give him all that you are. I wanna go high, so send your fire, give me all that good love and I'm all yours. And it ain't no place that you can send me that I won't go. I ain't no Jonah, don't free willy me, God, I don't want no smoke. Just let me know, give and go, adios, live by the ghost. Down on my knees, talk to the Lord, faith out the bowl, trust up alone. Walk across that H2O, ain't distracted by the storm. God of the winds, God of disease, miracle worker, yeah, he will perform his belief. I'm a testament, I got receipts up and down at the bottom. I heard the Lord speaking, get low to go high, prostrate in the fire. These Nebuchadnezzar's gon' see the Messiah. It's within you to count over everything. Kaepernick knee on the neck of the enemy. Try to oppress, but don't give him no energy. Holy Ghost reverence and revel the synergy. He want the SUB and my ancestor, yo, and he wants your submission. Break down, do his will, to the sound and give all that you are. He wants her everything, give him your everything, yeah. This is the stick up. He wants her all, give him your all, yeah. This is the stick up. He wants her everything, give him your everything, yeah. This is the stick up. He wants her all, yeah, all, yeah. SUB and my ancestor, yo, and he wants your submission. Break down, do his will, to the sound and give him all that you are.
Hello, everyone. It's Thursday, which means that it is Bible study, which means that you are getting ready to get fed, which means that you are going to hit that share button, which means that you are ready to comment, and more importantly, you are ready to receive. So, hello, I'm Pastor Adrienne Grant, and I am here to unpack feelings with some amazing individuals who are our fellow Fresh Start members. Now, I can just let you know now, this topic, it's going to challenge you, but that's why you're here. You want to get challenged. You want to have answers. And yes, we have answers for you tonight. And I hope you have answers too, because that's what really makes the difference in every Bible study that we do here at Fresh Start. You bring answers, we give answers, God is the answer, and we're all blessed. Look at that, look at that, look at that. Rotation. Okay, so we're going to jump right into this. While you're sharing, while you're commenting, all of that fun stuff, we're going to jump right into this tonight because we have a lot to talk about. And we are talking about numbness and pain. Sizzle, sting, all of that, all right? It's a thing. It's a thing. And hopefully you can feel it. And if you can't feel the sting yet, then by the end of this, you will. And that will make more sense as we talk about this. So pain. When we hear pain, right, a lot of times we go straight into the physical. We go right into I tripped, I fell, oh my gosh, I'm bruised, right? It goes into something that you can see, something that you can feel physically, right? But we want to flip it, of course, because this is feelings that we're talking about, and talk about what emotional pain looks like, what it feels like, what the experience is like for us as just people, but definitely as believers. How do we show up and how does pain show up in our lives, right? So pain is defined as an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience frequently caused by injury or trauma. Unpleasant sensory and emotional experience frequently caused by injury or trauma. Now, the thing is, we don't always think about emotions as something that can be caused by an injury or caused by, we think about injury and we think about something that's physical, but injuries can happen to you emotionally, can happen to you spiritually. But the thing is with pain, we've been talking about these secondary emotions, right? Those secondary emotions that we've been talking about over the past few weeks, and plug, if you missed it, they're still up. So watch. So those secondary emotions that we talked about, anger, disappointment, frustration, sadness, right? They all can actually show up as a result of you feeling pain. So pain is something that partners so closely with a lot of the feelings that we've been talking about, and some of them that we haven't even tapped into. Additionally, it is an indicator that we are hurt by a person or circumstance. A lot of times when I hear people and I'm counseling them and things like that, and I ask them how they're feeling, they actually don't say, I'm in pain. They say, I feel hurt, right? So there's people automatically jump and say that when they think about it in defining pain, they automatically say it's synonymous with hurt, but they actually work together. Pain and hurt works together. Pain is a result of you hurting, okay? So with that, have a question for all of you. Let's kick this off. And for you online, what are your personal symptoms that help you identify that you are in emotional pain? What are your personal symptoms that help you identify that you are in emotional pain?
So I'm scared to answer just because I don't want to get ahead of our lesson. But if I'm honest, I think for me, numbness is the sign that I'm in pain. Because I'm not a person who jumps to some of those secondary emotions that we talked about. I don't rush to anger. I don't rush to extreme sadness. I'm not extreme in that way. I think my extreme is to feel nothing. And I think that's the time when I need to check myself, because I'm probably dealing with something, or a better way to say that is something is dealing with me, and I'm shutting down in order to stop myself from feeling the pain. It's almost like, I don't know, for some reason I just got this imagery of a turtle, Turtles retreat in their shell because of the danger that they sense. And so I'll shut down, and I can be present
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
still shut down
Yeah.
because of the pain that I'm experiencing. And so I think that's the symptom for me.
Yeah. So interesting. Shut
I
down.
kind of just want to actually tag on that. I think for me, I kind of like immediately when I'm like offended or like someone hurt me, like I usually just like I'll stop talking, or if I stop talking, I'll either probably leave the room, you know, because it's just like, oh my gosh, like you said this and it really kind of crushed me inside. And sometimes like because I don't want it to show, I don't want people to be like, oh my gosh, are you okay? What's happening? Oh my God. You know what I'm saying? I just like, I stop talking and I'll smile and then I'll walk out. So that's kind of like my
It's the awkward smile for me. It's like I'm walking out now.
like,
We're done with this
pain right
conversation.
I definitely don't like rush to anger and I don't lash out. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like really sensitive.
It's the laugh
I'm
for
like
me.
really sensitive. So I'm just like, oh, okay. Let me just exit stage left. Okay. That's for me.
I would say for me. So I recently learned, right? It's gonna make sense. I recently learned that when someone if someone taps you like that and it really, really hurts, like you have an autoimmune issue. Like it hurts too much. Like you have to figure out what's going on the inside because that shouldn't hurt you. And so I think for me, I've learned that when taps hurt me, like I'm in pain. Like
That's really good.
it shouldn't be like if you like don't call me, like I shouldn't be this mad about it, right?
Yeah.
Like that means that things have happened and I've let them like pile up and now there's something wrong on the inside, which is an indicator of pain. And so I think for me, like oversensitivity is my issue, and that's my indicator that something is happening, usually a painful experience.
That's so good.
That is so good. Well, let's not jump, okay? I don't know if people can actually hear the heavy breathing that's also happening. Like, it's pretty intense right now.
I agree. And for me, I think it's a similar thing. I just go quiet and I kind of, I guess, in a sense, put on the mask because I feel like things have to keep moving. Like I can't just, I know that's bad, but sometimes that's how it is. I don't want to have to keep explaining myself to everybody like, what's wrong? And you have to keep rehashing, then it keeps, so that's my thing. I just go quiet and keep it moving.
Why?
No, not just scratching.
Why?
No, because like I think like right now this is a painful moment for me, and I like feel it all over my body, and I'm just like I'm uncomfortable, and I think for me the first emotion is anger. I'm like, why do we have to talk about this? Like, why do we have to bring up pain? And like, let's just like ignore that. And it's just like a visceral frustration and anger that's very present in my body. And everything in my body just wants to expand. I'm just like, ugh, like everybody move. Like I just want to push everything out of the way and just, I think that's what it is. I try to take control of the moment because I know that for me, pain is just like, it's an uncontrollable experience. Like, it's so interesting. I'm even thinking about like when people ask you like, what's your level, like your rating for it? And it's just like, whatever the rating is, like, it just is what it is. Like, you can't like really like, oh, well, like it's no, like whatever it is, or whatever is happening in your body, you just have to radically accept that. And that's very difficult for me when it comes to
It's so interesting because the trends that I'm hearing is that everyone has some form of retreating to treat themselves.
Something to stop it.
Yeah, like, but it's some sort of pushing away or pulling away from things that could actually potentially be helpful or people that could potentially be helpful. So it's really interesting to me that that's like the automatic thing. And the other thing is that you mentioned this whole element of this discomfort, which is also what I kind of hear being implied here. Like there's some level of discomfort. I'm overwhelmed, bye-bye, right? And there's something that when I'm facilitating things, when I'm carrying out conversations, when I'm doing public speaking, we start off with group agreements. And the top 2 group agreements that we include are try it on and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And trying it on is essentially being willing to try something else, almost like a new article of clothing that you wouldn't necessarily be your first pick, but you might actually see the benefits of it if you are willing to do it. And I hope that as we continue the conversation tonight, that people find themselves willing to kind of try something on, no matter how uncomfortable it is. So yeah, thank you all for sharing that. Now we're gonna jump into, you talked about these indicators, right? But some of the indicators externally, when you experience physical pain, you hear the pain, you hear the ouch, right? So we're going to talk about ouch that hurt. If you stub your toe, which is like, there's levels between paper cut
Jesus.
and stubbing a toe.
It's the pinky.
It's just something about those little ones, right? So there's just something about if you stub your toe or oh yeah, wow.
That's actually good.
If you stub your toe, you get a paper cut or something like that. There's a physical response, like, okay, yes, I'm feeling the pain, but then there's also a verbal response. Like you say, ouch, and it triggers, it catches your attention, it grabs your attention that something shifted, something's making me feel uncomfortable, right? And it sends like a notification, a little ping to you that I'm in pain, I am hurting. And the same thing happens to us when we're experiencing emotional pain, because pain really actually serves us. Pain can serve us, and it can serve us by simply informing us of potential harm and creates a space for us to acknowledge that something just ain't right. So Psalm 55 verses 2-4 says, "Attend to me and answer me. I am restless in my complaint, and I moan because of the noise of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked. My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fear and trembling come upon me, and horror overwhelms me." Now, this is like, okay,
My God.
who needs a hug? All right, you
That's
need
pain.
that's pain.
Yeah.
You are going through. You're going through. And this, of course, was David talking. And what's really interesting, people, hear about David all the time. This man was always on the run, but he was still a king, but he was still running. And we talk about his running more than we talk about his throne. But what that running was, it was a painful experience. And what caused that running in the first place was a painful experience. But here's the thing with how I really appreciate David, because when he was in pain, he didn't not say, you were gonna know I'm upset, I'm in pain, I'm irritated, right? But here's the other thing, it doesn't stop at him just chatting and constantly telling people that I'm in pain. What we see in the Psalms is that he's letting the Lord know that this is my position, this is my posture, this is my experience, and I know that in order to endure this or overcome this, I need you in it, right? So what we see here is a breakdown of David just being honest about where he was and who hurt him. He didn't just focus on the pain itself, but he also focused on where it started, what the relationship was. And he wasn't stuck on his title or any level of his identity that would keep him from saying the full truth, that would keep him from saying everything that was honest about the experience, right? So now I want to toss to you, has any part of your identity, whether that's gender, age, a ministerial role, parent, whatever it is, has any part of your identity ever kept you from acknowledging when you were in pain?
I want to say, growing up with my father actually never, he never displayed emotions, and he also made it seem like it wasn't okay to acknowledge them or to actually, hey, this is what it is, it's okay, but you can move on from it. And so I think growing up as a guy, as a male, as a black male, and in the world, it's just like, oh, you can't show emotions, you can't have mental battles, you can't have like a wandering mind. Like it's just not okay. And then on the flip side, growing up as a person who loved to worship the Lord, who loved to, sing and all that stuff like that, like people have put me on a pedestal to the point where it was just like, hey, you're actually not supposed to feel that. You can't show that. Like that's like not okay. And if I did show it, it was a whole thing. Like, oh my gosh, you're not a worship leader anymore. You're not this. You're not that. You da 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 da. And so like coming from that, it's like, don't show this, don't show that, keep it inside. When you go home, you can probably cry on your pillow. It's going to be okay. But I realized that even with doing that, it actually caused more harm than good. And so that's like my thing.
Yeah. Me loves.
I would agree with Michael. Definitely the like leadership role you have. I think there are times when you may reserve pain, but I think one thing that I've learned in those situations is who to reserve pain for. And so I think with trusted individuals, right? But I also think it's important to reveal some aspects of pain to the people that you lead, so that they will know, right, like how to handle it. Because also think too, we got to be strong. We got to be, we can't show no emotions. And so I think leading in pain correctly is actually pretty effective. But on the flip side of that, I would say, when I don't want to say when it was happening, but whenever injustices happen, I think my place as a believer and just a Black woman in general is often a line that's hard to like walk, because people are looking at you to be an example as a Christian, but as a person you feel. Yeah. And so you do want to say, like, there's certain things you do want to say, you do want to speak out of anger. But I definitely think in that space, God is teaching me how to use that pain as a vehicle to allow other people to handle my pain correctly. And I often think that one of the reasons why people can't understand my pain is because I'm not expressing it in a way that's healthy or positive. So they're like, no, we don't want this pain because it's gonna hurt us. Right. We're all gonna be in pain. So those are the things that I would say.
Yeah.
I think that I struggled as a PK and in the church because I felt like it was always, everything was always like, oh, you shouldn't feel that. Just pray to God and he'll make you feel better. Or it's always just like brushed off like, you shouldn't feel that way. Just pray about it and you'll be okay. So it's always this feeling like I shouldn't feel this way. I should be praying and then everything will go away. Or, because I'm a Christian, these things shouldn't really be this way or feel this heavy or feel this burdensome to me. So I felt like I had to kind of unlearn that, and I'm still in some ways unlearning that it's okay to feel pain and express it to God. Sometimes I felt like I couldn't, or he didn't want to hear that because that would be like, you don't have enough faith. So he didn't want to hear that. So that was kind of
This face right here.
It was real good. No, because yeah. There's just like a lot of deliverance happening over here. But for me personally, because I was bullied so much, like I think I've told this story a lot of times, but because I was bullied so much, I think I really just developed just this prideful character, and I really took a lot. If I had like an Instagram page dedicated to the character that I built, it would be like 100,000 followers a day, because I took so much time and energy to make the intricacies of who that Danielle was and just to save face. Like I didn't want to care about anybody, and I really thought it was cool to not care. I thought it was cool to not care about anybody's feelings. I thought that cool people didn't get their feelings hurt. It's like, feelings, what are those? Like, so what? Like, take a shot and you'll be fine. And that was literally just like my mode of operation. Like, if you're upset about something, you go out with your girls, you drink, you party, you have sex, you do drugs. And I was so engulfed in that I was just like, what, is there any other way to be? To the point where I couldn't even identify what my emotions were. like I was just all over the place. That it was just like, whatever, like this is me. I don't care about. And I remember, I think even when you and I were growing up, sorry, we grew up together, but like I think that there were moments where I kept saying, I don't care about you, and that was like a thing that I just said to people naturally. I was like, I don't care about you. Like it would be close and dear friends that I would have friendships with for over 10 years, and just moments time, I don't care about you. So I think that just trying to avoid being bullied again, trying to avoid being an outsider or an outcast was me just avoiding that pain of, before you judge me, I'll judge you first. Before you not care about me, I'll not care about you first. And that's what kept the pain at bay.
I know you're okay. Yes.
So I think for me, it was taught to me that as a leader, like you just shouldn't display certain emotions. I think in practice, it was something that I never really subscribed to because I didn't see it in Scripture. You know, when I think about that passage that you just read about David, like one of the things that I love about David, I think we can kind of get stuck on the fact that he released his emotions, but David was actually processing his emotions, right? And so he would make this cry to the Lord, but he wouldn't end it at the cry. It was, I'm gonna do this until I get to remember that but God is, right? But God is my source. He's my strength, whatever it is. And so I believe that that's what I have kind of come to learn, is that it's okay to process those feelings openly, but make sure that you terminate on what is true. Because a lot of times the pain that we're feeling, as Janae talked about, I think that was so good about that autoimmune deficiency, right? Like it is a real feeling, but it may not be what you think that it actually is. And so I try to process openly. I try to have safer spaces to process more specifically. So I process out loud, but then the details of it, I think I have a core group of people that I process with. But again, I think Jesus is our greatest example of that. I think about when he was literally in agony, you know, in Gethsemane, and he brought his disciples with him into the process of his pain. And so I do think that there are people who get the opportunities to see the fullness of that. We just need to be careful about who that is and make sure that they can actually contribute something and not just commiserate in our misery.
Yeah. I love that, connecting everything that I'm hearing once again, that one, Jesus was an amazing template on another way to retreat. And the space that we can have, and David as well, where I heard a lot of people basically mentioning how I have learned to dismiss my feelings because that's the message that I was taught by others, right? That they have dismissed my feelings, so I should be dismissing my feelings. But what we see here in this scripture is that dismissal is not not the answer. Like if God has blessed us with emotions, and we don't, even the ones that seem negative and seem overwhelming are still a blessing. And what I'm really, especially Daniel, thank you for sharing that and being so transparent. Thank you all for being so transparent. But being able to see that when we experience pain, our next step is, how can I avoid pain? And if you are always making decisions from a space of avoidance, what are you actually missing out on in addition to that, because you're trying to skip that one part? And that's, what are you missing out on about yourself? What are you missing out on about God? What are you missing out on as far as the relationships that you could potentially have with other people, but you're so stuck on trying to avoid something that you believe now that you must dismiss, when you really just need to process it. So, yeah. All right. So you all kind of touched on as well where you got these messages from, and it connects directly into our next part, which is, who hurt me? Who hurt me? So our identity, are people
Everybody.
struggling?
Go ahead.
This is what happens when you look down for 2 seconds. All right. Okay. So our identity and the source of our pain may influence how or if we acknowledge the pain at all. The Psalm 55, 2-4 that we were just talking about with David is an example of acknowledging pain when others have inflicted pain. But pain can also be self-inflicted.
I'm out.
There
My
is
That's my
God.
cue right there.
emotional. Yes. All the
Jesus.
awkward emojis in the world, my
SpongeBob
friend.
inserts.
Insert SpongeBob.
Jesus.
And the little kid who had the drink that has like all of that is a thing because it's true. It's awkward, but it's true, right? There's some pain, some emotional pain that is self-inflicted. In Psalm 38:3 says, "There is no soundness in my flesh because of your indignation."
Jesus.
Yes, Lord. "There is no health in my bones because of my sin. For my iniquities have gone over my head like a heavy burden. They are too heavy for me." Now, so much to say. I feel like I should take a pause and let everyone process, but y'all can process while I talk. Okay, so here's the thing, because this is what I want to. Here's the disclaimer to this part of our conversation, that this is not to say that condemnation reigns over us. So every time that we sin, pain is absolutely inevitable and that we deserve it, so to speak, because we did it to ourselves. That is, the condemnation is the pain that that's tricking us, right? It's something that then causes us to, that is the self-inflicted pain. I'm now condemning myself because of this one decision.
Yeah.
Right? I'm now condemning myself because of this one relationship. I'm now condemning myself because of that one mishap, right? And the thing is that yes, our sin can be tricky. Yes, things are really tempting. And what happens is that sin can cause, pain can come in the form of just being spiritually blind. Like now I can't see myself the same way, and that hurts. I feel like I can't see God the same way, and that hurts. I feel like I can't come to him the same way, and that hurts. But it's a trick, my friend. It's a trick.
Yes.
And David, it's crazy because this psalm that I just read is also from David. So we talked about how David was able to be honest about, they hurt me, and here's how they hurt me. I'm on the run. Where are you? But I know you're here, God. This is the same David. This is the same David that now is saying, it's not just them, it's me. It's not just them that betrayed me, that let me down. It's not just them that sabotaged me. It's not just them that belittled me. No, I did that. I did that. And now I'm on the receiving end of my own decisions, of my own way of thinking, my own way of living out life, right? And it can be challenging, but once again, we still see the same pattern. David was consistent. David was consistent because he still came to the Lord and said, this is the pain that I'm processing, even though I was the one that caused it. And I'm processing it with you. So, do you find it easier to over the people of God?
This panel, the amount of dread. Why'd I come?
We can't take commercial breaks. So, do you find it easier to overcome your pain when the source of the pain is you versus someone else? And why or why not? So do you find it easier to overcome your pain when the source is you instead of someone else? Why or why not? This is my Lord.
Okay. Unpopular opinion. This is just me. Okay, so nobody shoot me. This is me, right? Because I know people are like, oh, anyway, I hear people already. Most times when I process through fully, it is still traced back to me. So somebody else may have done the initial act, but the place that I find myself in now is me, because I let it get too far. And so for me, it's one and the same, because I really, and this is really my belief, you don't have that much power over me. You don't have, that's just me. I'm about to get mad because I get mad about that thing. You don't get to have that much power over me. And so if that is true, my response to these things, how long I let it fester and all of that stuff that kind of comes along with it, I still trace it back to me. And so so for me, it's all one and the same. It's just a matter of, did I start it? Or did somebody else start it? But either way, the end result is still the same. It still comes back to me.
It still comes back to him.
That is so mature. I partially agree, but it's still them.
I'm
still you.
actually weak.
That's kind of my answer, but kind of not. So I would say for me, I think I'm a little bit more forgiving for others, but not myself, because I let it get to me, right? So it's like, okay, this happened to me, whatever, this person said, whatever, whatever it is. And I am upset with them because they did inflict pain on me. But then it's like, but you let them get you.
That's it.
And so, but for me, that's not a great thing. It's like a pride thing, right? Like, it's like everybody is susceptible to pain.
Watch it.
You're not the only person.
Don't do me like this.
Sorry. Like, you're not the only person that felt that pain, that felt it maybe from that person, that maybe feel like it wasn't you. Like, there was nothing in me that was calling out to be hurt.
Oh my gosh.
There was nothing in me that said, make me your next victim. Like, it was like either, it wasn't anything special about me. And so I think there's a pride that happens in me, because I'm like, how you gonna let them do you like that? But we're all like, we can all feel the same type of pain. So there's nothing special that attracted that to me. And so in that way, I'm too hard on myself, because I'm expecting myself to be made of steel. When you're a person. And so, so I'll stop there. So it's them,
Don't
but
stop,
it's also
keep going.
me.
I'm not okay. I'm not okay, because I'm trying to figure out what the source is, because I think that's important, right? Like, is this a pride issue? Like, is it like, no, you not about to get me? Because that's how I feel. Sometimes I feel like, yo, you not going to get me. I think I thought of that as maturity, which is what you said. Now I got to sit and process openly about whether or not that's pride. So I'm gonna sit and think on these things. I'll think on these things. Good.
Yeah, I definitely think for me it's pride, because it, like, the way that I can't shake it off and the way that I feel like it's so personal makes it like, and so there's some things that really just are personal. But everything, it goes back to this thing, right? Everything is not personal. You know what I mean? And so in me thinking that if I would have done something different, or if I may have thought something different, or may have read my Bible a little bit more, that I wouldn't still feel pain, but I'm a person. You know what I mean? And so things happen, and there's nothing in certain, right, this is not a blanket answer, but in certain situations, there's nothing that you can do to avoid hurt. Like, it is a part of life. And so to think that I could have stopped anything, to me, is why I think it's a pride issue for me.
So while you're still processing, I just want to toss out a physical example for us to process. Going back to the stub toe. If you stub your toe and you feel the pain, and you even said, ouch, would you say, no, you're not going to get me? Or would it still be like, my toe has been stubbed and I feel it? Like, this is a sincere question.
So I have a sincere answer. I think it depends on how long I let that pain, or what I allow that pain to do to me, right? So there are some people stub your toe, everybody feels the ouch. That's fine. That's not a problem. If I'm ouching and I'm cussing, and now the rest of my day, you cussing, y'all know how y'all do, right? So,
How y'all
right?
do,
So,
be specific.
but if I now, because there are some of us who do this, now that I started my day off that way, the remainder of my day is jacked up because of this. No, now I'm mad. I'm mad because I allowed this stub toe, which was not my fault, to now get the better part of my day. That's me. That's not the bedpost. That was me. And so I still kind of stand by what I said before, which is that I think feeling the pain is fine. Acknowledging it, yes, let's do that. What happens after that, that's me. Yeah.
Interesting.
My thing is, I would make another situation of, and it's happened to me before because I'm clumsy. You stub your toe, the same toe, more than one time, and get frustrated.
The same
Sit
song.
down. Just go somewhere and sit down.
So, and in the same way, I think it goes back to feeling like, you know, blaming yourself, how you let this happen, or because my dad would always say to me, people can only do to you what you let them do to you. So I would make it come back to me like, okay, how did I let this happen again? Or how did I let this happen the first time, you know? So I think it's harder maybe forgiving myself, knowing that, you know, trying to think of ways I could have prevented it. And then if it happens again, it's like, yeah, sorry, okay.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna let people burst. And my Lord, okay. So there's something in my line of work that we teach a lot called trauma bonding. And it's essentially that when you actually experience something that is traumatic with someone, or in this case, something, and you overcome it, you actually feel closer as a result of the trauma. So you can end up in this cycle going back into the same traumatic experiences, but because we survived, we'll stick together. So I want to bring, I want to encourage people to stop beating yourself up so much about something that almost can feel like an instinctual, natural experience, that you can get into a cycle that feels right even with the pain, and it doesn't make sense, so you just keep doing it. And it can lead to a defeated mindset where you just don't understand. You're trying to comprehend it, but you bonded with someone and your trauma. You bonded with the decision and the trauma that came along with it. And that is just a matter of saying, I'm coming out of covenant with that experience. I'm coming out of agreement with that lie. I'm coming out of agreement with this relationship. It's like you gotta cut it. You gotta cut it.
I'm not
so
okay.
the thing is,
We need to check in, make sure everybody's all right.
so this is like it's like what we also call like the cycle of abuse. But at some point, the way that you realize that you're in the cycle is that someone comes and informs you that that's what it is. So I'm just letting you know that's what you're in. Now all you have to do is cut it. That's it. Who wants to go next?
Who you think want to go next?
What was the question?
I
to go home.
What was
Nobody
the
would be
question,
next.
though? What was the question?
What was the question? Is the best question of the day.
Okay.
No, I just honestly like it's so interesting because I feel like everyone's answers are balancing each other out. Because like why?
I agree.
Because it's like why? Like, so there's something called DBT, right? Dialectical behavioral therapy, and it's the idea that we can feel two things at one time, and it's like we often. We put ourselves in a, I can feel you, but we often try to stuff ourselves into one category or the other. And it's like, no, I'm not doing this because this is it. And no, I'm not going to be too forgiving, or I didn't forgive enough. And we rack our brains and we split ourselves right down the middle. And then before you know it, we become nothing. And what I think is so amazing about God, about the Holy Spirit, about Jesus Christ, is that he was 100% human and 100% God. And there were moments that if you really pay attention to Jesus Christ, that he would just burst out and say, I'm hungry, or I'm tired, or it's not my time yet. And the disciples are like, are you okay though? And it's like, it's like amazing.
That's really good.
Because it's like his humanity was so there, but at the same time, his God was so there. And I think that is what David is doing. It's like, Why can't I understand that? Yes, you played a role. Yes, you are not having a great moment. Yes, you took a part in my demise, my downfall. And then at the same time, I turn that same mirror, I turn that same grace, I turn that same favor, that same forgiveness, that same speck, that same log that's in your eye. I place it in my own and I say, okay, and what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? What did I do right? How can I give myself more grace? How can I cut the crap? How can I cut it and be better? Like if we are
so
all
good.
human, and this is and I heard TD Jake say something that was so amazing today. He said we have to understand mankind, not just your kind. And if we want to be better at interacting with mankind, understand that we are all human. So you played a part. I played a part. You get grace. I get grace. I get to be upset with you. I get to be upset with myself. And at the end of the day, the Lord is glorified. We can feel both feelings. None of them are wrong. None of them are right. They just are. Just be what God has called you to be.
I'm trying to figure out where I go next.
I don't know. We go home.
Cut the crap. Cut the crap. Just cut it.
One.
This is the best, worst class ever.
I'm like, what? And y'all talk about me and my mic drop. You picked up my mic and threw it. But okay. All right. So that does connect to this next point. And I'll definitely, I'm going to skip over some things. She covered it. But I do want to talk about how this is too much. This is too much. One, I just want to shout out Monique, the comedian, because this GIF is amazing and it's what inspired this. But I want to talk about this because what I'm hearing from everyone is this processing with our duality, right? And I want to define for people the difference between dwelling and processing. Dwelling and processing. So dwelling on your pain consists of pain becoming your focus and having all of your attention. So that becomes all that it is, and it sits there, right? Processing consists of the pain being confronted with God's way.
Yeah.
One creates an idol, another one creates a sacrifice. So you have to assess what you are creating, and that will help you determine if you're just in process or if you're just sitting. All right? So,
I'm not okay. You can't just run by that. I'm not okay.
But here's
one creates an idol and another creates a sacrifice.
But here's the thing. So I just want to add this as well. If you realize that you have been dwelling, right? So that's the idol. You can still make your idol a sacrifice. You don't get stuck in dwelling. You can still shift from dwelling to processing. So you still you're still not defeated because you still have another option. You still have another option.
Make the idol a sacrifice. That is really strong.
Make it a sacrifice. Make it a sacrifice.
You done made the man of God sing the jingle. There's a whole jingle in his heart. But no, seriously, that's really strong. I know we got a lot of stuff to cover. I get it. But I actually do think we should lean into that because I think that we can get stuck in the dwelling and then get stuck on the fact that I'm dwelling instead of realizing that I have opportunity right now to change that and make that the sacrifice. That is really important, right? Because I think that, I just think about we have this worship culture now, right, in the church where, everything is about worship, but it's about songs. But worship is really about sacrifice, right? That if we really want to worship God, then we let go of our idols. The idols become the sacrifice. And so I think one of the best ways that we really can give honor to God, to give glory to God, to worship God is by really letting those things go and, giving them fully over to Him and not getting stuck there.
Yeah. Processing is worship. That's essentially what worship is just processing. And we can overcomplicate it and not necessarily know what to say or what to offer, but you just offer whatever it is that you are trying to process. And then He does that with you. So you partner in your processing.
I'm sorry. It's just a lot. Like that was good too. Yeah. Like, and everybody is you're saying it, but everybody else is like we're catching it. Like I think that is huge. That worship is processing. That is huge, right? Because when we think about it, right, our language in worship comes from the processing of the goodness of God, right? It's about his character, it's about who he is, right? And I think that in our daily lives, the worship comes from us processing where we are, what he has done, what he is doing, what he will do. All of that is worship. And so I think the reason why we would do a course like feelings is because we recognize that we glorify God even in our emotions.
Yeah.
And I think there are people who would look at this and say, this is not Bible study, right? They're just talking about their feelings. But this is why we have unhealthy Christians who are not glorifying God because we won't give him the essence of who we are, the essence of who we are, our emotions. And so I think it's important for that to be a part of our worship.
Yeah. Y'all can't see, but people are bursting in every corner of this room. Okay,
behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, everywhere. Yeah.
But what I do hear you saying as well is there's this and this is something that I've really been thinking about a lot is the power of your meditation because that processing and the different things that you can process that Pastor Morris just listed, that's showing you what you're meditating on. And whatever you meditate on, you maximize. So when you meditate on his goodness, when you meditate on the fact that he's with you in your process, you're maximizing him and your relationship with him. So meditation is such an essential part to you being victorious and disciplined in your relationship with your own emotions. Like it helps you connect the dots, and it helps you be at peace that you're still connecting the dots. You didn't reach the final destination yet, but I'm okay with that because I'm doing it with him. I'm okay with that because I meditated not just on the pain, but I meditated on everything that comes with that. Like I see meditation gets you to see the full picture more than dwelling could ever. Meditation enables you to be able to see it. It covers more blind spots than dwelling can, because when you're dwelling, you're only dwelling on that thing. Meditation causes you to see beyond the horizon. You know, it causes you to see beyond where you are right now, but where you will be and everything in between. So it's super important. I have this scripture here that we hear all the time, but I want to put it in the context of emotions. Psalm 19:14 says, "Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer." My rock and my redeemer. So I want to be able to encourage you not just on what you meditate on, but what your speech becomes helps it. One, it shows where you are as far as your emotions. Like, are you always in denial about your emotions? Are you always laughing about your emotions? You know, like even the ones that are painful for you, like those are actually indicators of where your meditation is, but is that speech actually acceptable to him? Is that emotion present because he wants you to talk about it in a way that's honest, in a way that gives him glory, in a way that's pure, in a way that is patient with you and him? You know, like it's not just what's in your heart, but what comes out of your mouth should still, pertaining to your emotions, be able to glorify God. And in the midst of all of that, you should still be able to see him as someone who can redeem you from the pain. And he's still your rock in the pain, right? So if he's still your rock in the pain and he can still redeem you from the pain, right? Then that should change your speech, and it should change what it is that you're meditating on, because you see where he is in all of it. You see where he is in all of it. So I'm definitely, y'all preached half of this. So I don't even need to cover this.
I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Sorry. So I was thinking, I laughed, but I listened. When you were talking about how people laugh about their emotions, because that's me all the time. Like I'm gonna laugh till it feels better. But even when it's not a joke. But
you doing it right now.
I know, right? It's so natural to me. I hear people often say, and I think it's in the Bible. I've never read it, but people say things are in the Bible. Laughter is medicine for so, right? And I believe that that's true, right? But the purpose of medicine is to take care of symptoms. It's not always to relieve whatever is ailing you.
Wow.
And so I think for me, I've used laughter as medicine, and I felt better. It's like, yeah, it's funny, but it's actually not funny. So yeah, I think I know there's a lot of people that probably do that too, and use that word as a way to use laughter as an escape. But it's okay to laugh right through some things, but only the Lord is going to get you through it. After you finish laughing, maybe you need to lay on your face, right? Because there really are some things that only God can deliver you out of, and change and help you realize, and meditation and all those other things. But I definitely just want to point out as a chronic laugher, that can be an indication that you really need to seek the Lord for something. And it's time to give up the medicine, and maybe you need to meditate instead of medicate.
Let me. Right?
No.
How are we supposed to do this? I don't understand how you do this. All right. Okay. All right. So here's the thing. So I actually want the next part that I wanted to talk about is painkillers. I want to talk about painkillers. And what I'm hearing from Elder Janae is that we can actually use something to kill pain when it's really just putting it to sleep. And this is what I want to unpack with you. Because you see, unconfronted pain that can show up as laughter and all these other things can actually be a result of being intimidated or overwhelmed by your pain. And in desperate times, we may resort to dangerous methods just to get rid of the pain, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, such as numbness. So this is where numbness comes into play. And that actually can be an example of it. Numbness is defined as losing the ability to feel or express your emotions. It's also disassociating yourself from an experience or feeling. So losing the ability to feel or express your emotion. The thing is that it really just comes down to that you actually may be experiencing something and not even realize that something is wrong. You convince yourself to have a different reality. And this is dangerous because it can be the early signs of depression. But the intention behind numbness can be an effort just to protect oneself from any further damage or injury. It's all about how can I protect myself, right? But numbness can give the appearance or create a belief that I am okay when I'm not. It's a false identification that leads to false living. It's a false identification about the state that you are in that leads you to false living. Okay? Now, the signs of this, because I know that people have to process, the signs of this include lost interest, inability to feel pleasure or enjoyment, food doesn't taste as good, including spiritual, indecisiveness, guilt, avoiding loved ones, easily offended and or feeling attacked. And I want to challenge people that even in the state of this pandemic, that it could have put us in this place where I don't feel like I'm being protected. So how can I protect myself? I have all of these emotions and everything that I can't fully process. Where does that lead me, right? And if you are showing any of these signs, it could be an indicator that you are not living truthfully, that you are in the state of false living rather than in free living. And this is still something that I want to encourage people that it doesn't stop here, but there's another option, which we will get into. But that brings me to.
Did you?
Where?
Right,
Brings you
where
to
you
what?
going?
Where are you going?
I'm trying to
You
encourage
just told us we
people.
was living false. Where we
I'm
going
trying
now?
to encourage you guys. Lord,
That was hard. It was good, but it was hard.
there's hope.
You hear my throat? My throat is going.
Listen.
That frog from January that leaped up all the way to
Not
August.
the frog. I can't. I have something on the other end of that.
Okay. Well, let's journey on then.
I have something on the end of that. There is a but. John 10:10 says, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." And I want to shift our perspective of this scripture as far as our emotions. The enemy can literally even try to steal your emotions from you or kill them or deceive you and make you think that they died. Right? So then there's this element of destroying your relationship with your emotions. But it doesn't end there. He's doing his job. Christ already did his. So he came that you may have life and have it abundantly. And this is essentially the answer to you in experiencing your numbness. The answer, because numbness is almost like just the Walking Dead, right? But if he is life and he has given that to you, then he is the answer to that. So I really want to encourage you that as long as you are living and active, there is hope that life can be active in you, right? It's not like the end all be all. I've had my experience with numbness, but I've also had experience with life, and let me tap into that. So how can you tap into life even though the enemy is doing his job and attempting to steal, but the Lord is still covering you in all of it? So for the sake of time, I am going to pause and just hear from all of you quickly. Even though you've heard all of that, what has been your experience as a believer when it comes to how the church teaches or responds to numbness? So, as a whole, what is your posture on what has been your experience when it comes to the church and numbness?
I'll jump out on this one. I think, and the reason why I wanted to jump out first is because I think that this is one of the characteristics of this church. I think it's what makes us who we are, is that I think I had an intentionality to not anesthetize us with the rituals of the church, right? And so I feel like what the church has done is let's shout on top of sadness. Let's scream on top of pain, and not ever actually deal with it. And so we receive these momentary glimpses of relief. But what it does is it creates a culture where you just need to get your next fix because it is medication, is all it is, right? And so if Jesus said, I came that you would have life and have it more abundantly, well, then that's the goal. The goal is not to feel better in this moment. The goal is not to chase the next preacher who makes me feel good, the next prophet who can tell me something that's contrary to what I'm experiencing right now. I want to hear about the future, but I also need to deal with my present. Like, let's do both. And so I think that that's where the church has gone wrong, is I think that we have had an active look for what's ahead and not a look at what's inside. Like, let's do both at the same time.
Let's do both at the same time.
Can you repeat the question?
As far as your experience as a believer, what has been your experience as far as the church and numbness? Like, how teaches or responds to the idea of numbness?
So I think I would agree with everything that Pastor has said. In the past, I believe we shifted from one extreme to the other. So I think there was like a real, like, don't talk about your feelings. Don't ever do it. They're evil. Don't. But now I believe that the church is becoming very me-centered. And so with that, because we talk more about ourselves and we talk about God, there is this lean into feelings a whole lot. Not in the way that we're doing it, but like feel it through and chase the feeling and follow the dream. Like, there's just a lot of like, how do I benefit? How can I win? What can God do for me? Instead of surrendering whatever the numbness or the feeling to him so that he can make that exchange. And so I love the idea that, the church is progressing and there's a lot of different thoughts that are coming in, but I believe that it all has to point back to God.
Yes.
And without that, it's just you venting.
Yeah.
It is just you. It doesn't matter if your Bible's open in front of you. Doesn't matter if you throw the word God in there. If it does not point back to him, if it does not point back to his glory, his goodness, and how you can become more like him, then it's devilish. And so I think what we see now is there's a point where the church can turn and we can have more conversations like this, and we can do more of this where we can say you can have both. You can have your feelings, you can talk about your feelings, you can process your feelings, but at the end of the day you can have them submitted to a good God, and he won't allow you to forsake your feelings and call it faith, but he'll allow you to present them and he'll do something with it.
Yeah.
This is okay. All right. Okay. So this is I love the balance that both of you brought to the table. And I quickly just want to talk about a hard knock life as a Christian. Because what both of you were saying essentially is that true Christianity is not meant to discredit your pain, but it is also not meant to advocate for you wallowing in it. Right? So we don't discredit, but at the same time, it's not like we're gonna all sit down and have a self-pity Christian group, right? But instead, there's this mindfulness of what has Christ spoken to us about truly living out this life as believers. And to be honest, he was very open and transparent with us and letting us know that we're going to experience pain. And John 16:33 said, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So Christ provided a template for the believer on how to manage pain. And I just want to break it down in 3 simple steps. Simple. Accept that pain is inevitable. Be at peace with the truth, him, and then embrace victory over pain. Accept that pain is inevitable. Be at peace with the truth and embrace victory over pain. So, using one word, I want to know, that's the challenge. Using one word,
I'm out.
I want each of you to share how you believe that you can improve your message to non-believers around dealing with pain. One word.
Explain it.
The look.
Because I had one and I don't know, it's not all encompassing, but go ahead.
Study.
Yeah. I'm going to go with my original word, which was submit.
I thought you would
Wait, to non-believers?
Yes, to non-believers.
Submit?
Yes, submit.
you take his word. No. Or you? Oh, okay. You confirm it. Okay. I would say resilience.
What is happening?
Honestly, this is probably one of the most memorable.
Because this one is hard. That's a hard question.
Yeah. It's okay if you want to add like a word like be at the end.
B.
Like be. You can add words. What do you think?
Sing it.
Endurance. Is that a good?
Endurance is good.
How? Endurance.
You just woke everybody up.
I got a word.
I'll just stick with what came to mind. Transparency.
Love it.
Good. That's really good.
If I can, there are words in the comment section. I want to just read somebody. Minister Kelly says heal. Minister Tiffany says believe. Deacon Tamara says overcome. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to almost like encourage people to, I don't want to say motto, but for lack of a better term right now, how can you make that your motto? How can you make that almost like the word that I wake up with? Like, how can I endure more? How can I take a step to healing more, right? How can I be more resilient? Like, if that is the word that is setting the tone for your day so that you can evangelize, right? How would that make a difference in how you live out or walk out your walk with Christ? You know, the devil's busy. Okay, so so I want to jump into now just talking a little bit about how this shows up for us as believers. I'm going to read Philippians 3:8-11. Indeed, I count everything as lost because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For his sake, I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish, in order that I may gain Christ and be found in him, not having a righteousness of my own that comes from the law, but that which comes through faith in Christ, the righteousness from God that depends on faith, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection, and may share his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, that by any means possible I may attain the resurrection from the dead. I'm going to read 10 and 11 again. That I may know him and the power of his resurrection, and may share his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, that by any means possible I may attain the resurrection from the dead. Paul, in this scripture, he's displaying to the church of Philippi that believers don't shun expressing our pain or that it exists, but we also don't solely focus on it, because pain is an advantage for the believer. Pain is an advantage for us because we get to share it with him. Mm-hmm. It's your advantage, okay? It can, and that's because the scripture is really depicting how our suffering can draw us closer to him, make us more like him, and strengthen our intimacy with him. So if you're constantly avoiding pain or dismissing pain, how are you missing out on an opportunity to draw closer to him, become more intimate with Christ, and become more like him? You're missing out on an opportunity for actual blessings because you're trying to dodge pain. So unprocessed pain can actually limit our understanding of the gospel and the work of Christ. But we can continue to strive for it and choose pain. By choosing pain, I'm choosing Christ. It doesn't mean you're chasing after it, but if it comes, that means Christ is present. If it comes, that means I'm becoming more like him. This is an opportunity for me to grow. This is an opportunity for glory. This is an opportunity for his will to be done. So 1 Peter 4, 12-14 and 16 says, beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you as though something strange were happening to you, but rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. If you are insulted for the name of Christ, you are blessed. If you are insulted for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of glory and of God rest upon you. Yet if anyone suffers as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God in that name. What if you can actually just glorify God because you're not ashamed of your pain?
Wow.
What pain are you ashamed of that you actually should be rejoicing about? What pain has been present that is actually a testimony because the Spirit of glory is resting upon me.
Jesus.
I have the Spirit of glory resting upon me because I experience pain with Christ. My pain is a blessing. And I just want to end with this. It's the not for me. It's the not for me. 2 Corinthians 4, 8-10. We are pressured in every way, but not crushed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. We are persecuted, but not abandoned. We are struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry the death of Jesus in our body so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. We always carry the death of Jesus in our body so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. So my question for you, which is rhetorical, so no worries, guys. My question for you is, what's the not that you are overlooking? What is the not in your life that you are overlooking? If you're always focused on the pressure and you can't see the fact that you're not crushed, and instead you're looking and waiting to be crushed, but you're not. So you're missing out on a glorious moment. You're missing out on the fact that glory is present because you're not done. We're perplexed, but we're not in despair. You're waiting at the door. You're waiting for despair to come up. And it's almost like this self-sabotage that is happening, but the not is still present. And I can't praise you because I'm too busy paying attention to only a piece of the puzzle. But God, help us to see the full picture. Help us to see what we are not experiencing. Help us to see what you have protected us from. Help us to see what you have covered us from. Help us to see how your grace is still present, even if it was me that caused the pressure. Help me to keep moving forward, knowing what I'm not experiencing, because our pain is a part of our miracle. Because even if it hurt, we are still here, and he still won. Our pain is a part of our miracle because even if it hurt, we are still here, and he still won.
I just need a
What
shout.
is your still, and what is your not?
God.
What is your still, and what is your not? And if you can grab hold to that, you can see victory, you can see glory, you can see his goodness, even in your pain, whether you're still going through it or you know at some point you're going to overcome it. You will be able to glorify God all the more just because you see the not and you see the still. And with that, we love you all. We believe that Christ alone is with you and he is for you. And because of that, you share sufferings with peace in your heart and praise on your lips, because there's a revelation that you and others get to experience because you know the not and the still. We love you all. We believe that the Lord's going to do a work. I'm really trusting the Lord for deliverance for so many of you. And with that, we will see you next time.